War Eagle Auburn family, and welcome back to another edition of E2C Network Live. This is one of our Auburn Family live streams where we talk about what's going on in the world of the Auburn Family spectrum. Obviously, always heavy on the sports here on this network, but if it's orange and blue, we'll talk about it here. There's a plethora of things that can be discussed today. We're broadcasting live on two different formats. We have YouTube right here in front of me, as we always do, but every once in a while we like to let one of the social media outlets come in alongside us and have a separate stream. Over here we've got Instagram today. I actually got it working, so we have a few people popping in over here on Instagram. As always, we encourage the social media people to come on over to YouTube and join the experience over here because it's a little bit better, and I can keep track of everything with comments and everything a little bit better, but it's here for you if you all want, if you would like to utilize that. As you're coming into the stream, I do appreciate a couple things. If you'll do this for me, if you'll make sure you smash the like button, the reshare button if you're on social media, anything like that you can do to help push the stream out to anybody else so they can come be a part of the live show. And even if you're watching this on the replay, you can still do that as well. It'll help people find us and become part of our little family within the Auburn family. So I appreciate everybody who's already signing in right now. I see a lot of people here. What we do at the beginning of the show is I'll tell you what we're going to talk about today. Well, really, it's what you want to talk about today. Normally, I come with a main topic. I've only titled this one the Happy Valentine's Day Auburn Family stream because there's not really a big major topic that I wanted to discuss today. So I am counting on all of you with your questions and comments, especially live here, to dictate what you want to talk about. So this is like a free game day. We can talk about Auburn stuff. You can ask me questions that aren't even Auburn related. It's really just what we want to get together and talk about together. So that's what we're going to do. Let me go through a few pre-announcements of the show here. The people on YouTube will be able to see this. Instagram folks, you will not be able to see this, but you can come on over and check that out if you'd like to over on this screen. So for you YouTube folks, the links are already at the top of the chat window. Some ways that you can help support us by listening to the podcast. You can join the E2C Network Booster Club at patreon.com/E2C Network for as little as $1 a month. It helps support the content that we do here. You can donate, you can shop, all good things that you can do there to help to support the content that we're doing here. And as you're coming in, one thing that I always forget to do, and I forgot to do this time, I want to know where you're watching from right now. So everybody on social media, YouTube, post, city and state, country, if you're outside the country, where you are watching from, because I always love to see where we are so spread out from. We'll say hello to a couple of people. 78 Swilly says War Eagle, good to see you. Samuel Pate is here. Casey, a lot of familiar faces already here. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Casey brings up a great point to start off today. Softball has gotten started. If you're not watching Auburn softball, what are you doing? Now, to be honest here, I didn't sit down and actually watch the games or listen to them on the radio, but I did actually just kind of follow along with social media. And as typical fashion that you see with most softball and baseball beginning series, they're usually in the favor of the home team because we usually play some teams that are a little bit, not as up to par as Auburn. Is that Miss D Ford on Instagram? It is D. Thank you so much for being here. I always forget what part of the UK you're in. Is it? Oh, I should know this already. Anyway, post it there so we know where you're coming in from. We've got Cooper says he's from Alabama. Where in Alabama? That's what I want to know. Neil White's here. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being here today. Yes, they beat. So softball played a Southeastern Missouri State. Yes, they swept them and even threw a no-hitter. I think it was the 26th no-hitter in history of this. Thank you, D. It's Gillingham, Kent. I knew that was the sequence. I just couldn't get it all completely there. And we got Cooper's calling in from Calera. Bruton, Alabama. Rodney. Let me just tell you, if you're from Bruton and you don't know one Michael Floyd, who is the self-proclaimed Auburn superfan number 2, you need to go meet him on social media. He's a pretty cool dude. But that's cool that we've got 2 people from Bruton calling in here. Auburn is going to be hard to beat this year with Pinta and Lowe. So Pinta seems to be the star pitcher for Auburn softball. At least that's the way it seems to be right now. We'll see if that continues throughout it. But, usually your headliner pitcher is going to be your star pitcher, your one that you put out there first. But, yeah, so I'll be honest with you. When I looked at this Auburn softball team and the stats, the names that I recognized, completely brand new. And I forget the figure, but there was like a certain number that they had the first time starting for Auburn. So you can see that this is kind of like a clean sweep. So one of the things that may have coming out of a good sense from the cancellation of last year's season is kind of a restart, a retool of the program, and we'll see what happens with them going forward. But a good start to the year thus far. And so we'll bounce around a lot. I can already see a bunch of different questions and comments coming in. So if you're looking for one particular topic today, I hope you don't get too frustrated because we will bounce around a lot. Cooper asks on Instagram, I almost called it Twitter, but Instagram, he says, do you think Cooper is going to stay another year in basketball? This is one of those questions that I continue to bounce around a lot on. It is, personally, I want him to stay, obviously. I don't think anybody doesn't not want him to stay. I think he reached his peak of his potential in terms of how high he's going to rise in the draft, unless he just goes bonkers in these last 5 games. And if he does that, then I think it's going to be one of those situations where you may find some reasons to convince the kid to stay, but I don't know that you can pass up being a top first round draft pick. And I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 5. I'm not, nothing like that. Not like Isaac Okoro right now. But if you're a top 10 draft pick, kind of be stupid for you not to take the money and go, right? And I hope Bruce Pearl, and I think he did that with Isaac last year, would tell him to go. So right now, I would say it's a 50-50 at this point if Sharif Cooper is going to leave or not. I do think we have an opportunity to convince him that he needs another year, but it depends on what these last 5 games do. Yesterday reminded people that he's human. By the way, I just saw a couple people do it. If you haven't, please smash the like button, especially on YouTube. It will help push the stream out to others. Thank y'all for those of you that are doing that. Rodney, so what are we talking about? No, I am not in Auburn. I live actually outside of the Atlanta area. I was a student at Auburn at one point, and so this headquarters, if you want to call it that, is in my home, in my office, outside of Marietta. So we're not in Auburn. One day we hope to be. That would be the dream, is to us to take this show on the road to Auburn and do some bigger things. And for those of you that may not know what we are, I don't think I said it at the beginning, we're a podcast network primarily. Speaking of which, some of you all requested it, and I want to know what you think about it. We put a podcast episode up on YouTube. Now, of course, when it's up on YouTube, there's no video. It's just a blank image, not blank, just an image with the audio behind it. It looks like some people are listening to it. If you are, let me know. I'd love to know if that's something that you're enjoying, if it's worthwhile for us to put it up there. Primarily, we'd love you to come over to Apple Podcasts. That link is in the top of the chat window, or whatever podcast app that you choose. But some people have requested it, so we're trying it out again. Not guaranteeing we're going to keep doing it, but if you want it to stay there, you need to show me that you're listening on there. Cooper will stay. He's not ready. We just need a transfer point guard backup out of the portal, and Auburn will not. And Auburn not being in the postseason, I have time to study point guard that may transfer. I do feel personally, Casey, that you're probably going to see a transfer point guard come in regardless, because there's such a big gap here right now that's needed to be filled, because right now it's Sharif Cooper and then Alan Flanagan, and he is a serviceable point guard, but he is best suited when he's in his traditional shooting guard role. And not really focusing on getting the offense going forward. So, yes, we do need something regardless of whether Sharif Cooper stays or not. Because if Justin Powell comes back next year, and he should at this point, he had a huge rise in his stock at the beginning of this season. If he was going to go pro in the NBA, he was in the first round for some of the people that were picking him. But after his injury and having to sit out for so long for that, I would imagine that stock has dropped, unfortunately for him. But he'll probably be staying, thankfully for us. Neil, where do you live specifically, sir? Where do you live? You don't have to give me the exact location, but, vicinity. And I can probably give you an idea of how far we live from each other. I think we've covered this, though, on a previous live stream. Any more updates on Auburn football recruiting? So I keep pushing this off and saying that we're going to start talking about the next recruiting cycle, but we keep having other things to talk about today. And I figured today wasn't the best day to start that discussion because it's Valentine's Day. By the way, happy Valentine's Day to all of you. And obviously, I've already done stuff with my significant other today. We've been out to eat and all that kind of stuff, looked into each other's eyes lovingly and all that. So I hope you guys are finding time to spend time with the ones that you love today. East Cobb Snob is what he says. I'm an East Cobb Snob as well. We're probably within 30 minutes of each other. So, Rodney, any updates on I don't have any specific ones. I think we have currently 3 in the class. And if you're asking about recruits still for the 2021 class, I have no updates on that. And I think there's people still holding out hope for, what's his name? The Tennessee guys, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Cooper asks on Instagram, he says, how do you think we will do in football this coming up season? So I don't know. I would take this to mean that we've not done this on Instagram yet. This is our first successful Instagram live stream. Normally do it here on YouTube primarily, or one of the other social media broadcasts. But what I've been saying here a lot of, and this is going to be retread for some of you guys, is that I'm anticipating, after we went through the full schedule when it was announced, I'm anticipating a 8-4 regular season with a potential 9th win in a bowl season. I'm not going to go ahead and it's a push for me right now. And usually in the case of a push in the bowl game, I lean in favor of the opponent just because I want to protect my feelings. So I'm leaning towards a 9-5. I'm saying an 8-4 regular season, definitely. That's what I'm predicting, but I'm leaning towards a 8-5 potential full season with that bowl game as well. So good question, though. So we've talked about that a lot here, but doesn't mean we can't rehash that. War Productions is here. Good to see you, my man. Softball 3-0. Did you expect them to do anything less? There's a lot of people that are excited about this team. So he says also that South East Missouri is a decent softball team. So I wasn't, I'm not as well up on softball world as I used to be. I had no clue that Southeast Missouri State, what a name, by the way, was a good program or not. So, to me, that looked like a team that Auburn probably should sweep and at least win the series, if not sweep, to start off the season. Let's see. No matter what the season we have in football, I'm really excited to see a fresh new start. I think that's what, whether you were for or against the Gus Malzahn hire, I think, a new beginning is always something that people can get excited about, even if it was a new beginning that you didn't necessarily want. So I think there is a lot of, hope and optimism. I think you should have that. One thing that I've always tried to caution everybody here is cautious optimism. And because I think there's a lot of people, and I'm seeing it here in our, live chats or in the chats after this, that there's a lot of heightened expectations that I fear that are going to be badly trampled at the end of all of this. Casey's predicting top 3 in the 2022 recruiting class. We will out-recruit Bama and Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M is a potential, probably, if Auburn lives up to the potential of just selling itself, likely. Bama, I would not go ahead. I would not be predicting that right now. Neil says 8-5 is not bad considering a new coaching staff, and I think that would be a good season, right? And that's why I predicted that. I tend, despite what some of you may think, I tend to be an optimistic guy. And 8-5, I think for a first-year head coach, considering what he had to come into, is a very, very good season for them, especially just all that stuff here. A lot of new people popping, not new, but people we've seen before just popping into the chat right now. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all posting where you're calling or listening in from. Speaking of calling in, I've kind of pitched this before. You guys can help us by doing this, by subscribing and hitting that notification bell, sharing it out with your friends. If we get to 900 subscribers, I'm going to try this live call-in option thing that I have a potential to do. And maybe some of you all can call in if you'd like to. You don't have to utilize it, but we might do it in the future. I was for the firing before I was against the firing. So if you were for the firing before I was against the firing. So your mind changed to against? Not understanding that completely here. Dusty is going on. He says, Penn State game is a huge next year. Win that, and I think we start strong. Hopefully we will get some freedom back and pack Jordan Hare Stadium next season. I'm hoping for that as well. I wouldn't get your hopes up the way things are going in our world right now. Uh, but there's always hope. I do believe that. I personally believe we can open things back up a little bit more. But that's not my decision to make, and that's Auburn's liability that they're trying to manage. So we'll see what happens there. If you asked my opinion, what's going to happen, I think we could probably see 50% capacity next year is probably a solid chance of happening. I don't feel good about much more than that. But back to your comment about the Penn State game being of huge importance, I do agree. I think the Penn State game will be a marker of how the rest of the season is going to go. That doesn't mean if you win it, you're winning out. It just simply means that the team may be in a better position than we thought they would be. Because Penn State, while they're not world beaters right now, it's still a pretty decent Big Ten program. So I think going on the road to Happy Valley in a potential whiteout game, which they typically do, especially when a game of this magnitude where these two teams haven't played in a long time. I think this is our first trip to Happy Valley, if I'm not mistaken. Big game for both teams, and both are going to be wanting to set the tone for the rest of their seasons. I've leaned towards a loss there, but if they win, I will probably have to change my predictions. Stan, thanks for being here, calling in from Sanford. Southeast Missouri State is a two-time Ohio Valley Conference champion and made the tournament in 2019. It's weird to think about these things when you're trying to compare the whole 2000 using their 2019 stats to support if they're good now, because that's a whole year gap, and there's players that left and didn't even get to really fully compete last year. So it's always weird trying to use that as a case for me. Neil, I got your joke now. It went right here over my head, Neil, but I brought it back over my head, and I got it now. Penn State will be much better since they will have a full season of practice. Agreed, and there's not going to be all this confusion about, are we going to have football? Are we not going to have football? Can we do this? Can we not do these things? They were the conference that nearly ruined it for everybody else and panicked. One thing that I always appreciated about Commissioner Sankey, I almost said Stanky, Sankey, and the SEC for doing was their cautious approach, not just to the way they manage the challenges of dealing with this during a pandemic, but also the cautiousness where they took with making rash decisions. The Big Ten made a rash decision. They made a more, in my opinion, a political decision. The SEC sat back and said, we're going to wait, and we've got 2 months more since y'all have made this decision to sit back and just say, hey, let's see what happens. Let's see if we can play, have some type of season this year. Here are our protocols. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. We're just going to hope to see what we can get. Just saying they are usually good, so it could be a decent win on a res. It absolutely could. And if I was more up on my softball teams outside of Auburn, I could probably understand where you're coming from there, but I am unfortunately not. O'Neill, good to see you, my man. Thanks for being here. War Eagle to you. Is it a home and home with Penn State? Skinny boy, yes, it is. It is a home and home with Penn State. They will come to us the next season, which is going to be in. Anticipate this. 2 years' time, surely we are all back to normal. And thankfully, in a year where it's probably not going to be fully back to normal, we're going to Penn State. Can you imagine Jordan Hare Stadium, year 2 of Coach Harsin, who's hopefully surprised a lot of people? That atmosphere, that's going to be a college game day type of atmosphere. Auburn versus Penn State in Auburn. I will be there. And see, here's the biggest thing that I missed. Sorry, I know there's some other comments and questions coming in. I'm going to get to them in a second. One of the big things that I missed about this past year is what I would do is sometimes I would go to the games if I had a ticket or not. But I would stay on campus. I'd be there first thing in the morning, and I'd start sharing things on social media for those of you that couldn't be. And a lot of you seem to enjoy that. So if you're not following us on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. No, I'm on LinkedIn, but not the E2C network. Here on YouTube. But I would be sharing stuff throughout the day over there. And I just love doing that, being amongst the atmosphere from all the way up till game time, after it, everything in between. I did live streams from Toomer's Corner. So I miss doing that for you all, and we're going to do some of that in the coming times. I almost said weeks and months, but I don't want to predict anything right now. Let's see. John, good to see you. Thanks for being here. John is one of our Booster Club members. If you haven't joined the Booster Club, the link is in the description for this video, but also at the top in the chat window. I'll put it at the end as well. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month. And there are certain levels where you can get more perks and things like that. But we appreciate people like John who help support our content here. Dusty, let me address the Instagram comment because that's been waiting for it. Will Bo Nix be the starting quarterback this season? Oh, Cooper, you're opening up a can of worms. So for some reason, there's a group of people that get so offended when I say something good about Bo Nix on here, and that I say the problems are much bigger than Bo Nix on offense, and they are. Football is a very simple game. It's a complicated game, but it is a very simple game at its core. And I'm saying a phrase, a saying that's been around for ages. Football is won on the offensive and the defensive lines. If you cannot establish what is called a game of inches there, you will not be successful. Bo Nix's problems begin to get better with an offensive line that gives him some security. Now, and let me say this very clearly for the people that get very upset that the fact that I have the audacity to protect our quarterback. Bo Nix has his issues. He has things he has to work on. It's hard to work on those issues when you don't have any security, though. So we need to focus on the big, and also the thing that I think people miss in my argument about this. I'm not worried about fixing Bo Nix. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm worried about fixing Auburn. I want to fix the bigger issues that Auburn has. Bo Nix will leave at some point, whether it's this season, 2 seasons from now. But if our offensive line recruiting and development has not gotten better, we're still going to be in the same conversation about Demetrius Davis, the same conversation about Holder Grenier. I think that's the new guy that's coming in after him. Or if Khalil Garnett somehow wins a starting. We're going to still be in that same conversation. Fix the offensive line. You fix not just Bo Nix, but the rest of the offense. So to answer your question, will Bo Nix be the starting quarterback? In my opinion, yes, and he should be. I would much rather redshirt Demetrius Davis, let him build up some more muscle mass, be ready to compete in the SEC. And he can play, remember, I think in 4 games and still maintain his eligibility. That's the way you build some depth and success over that. I'm offended. Believe it or not, there are some people that just get downright offended. You know, it's just really, it's just funny. Let the coaches do their job. Yeah, I agree. That's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about it and just speculate about things. But we'll see. Going out of the Auburn world, how has your Valentine's Day been? Well, everybody else, how's your Valentine's Day been too? It's been great. We went to church this morning. We went out to eat at one of my wife's favorite restaurants. We exchanged gifts, and we went to a store that, if any of you know what Second and Charles is, it's like a multimedia store where it's got a lot of like, not secondhand stuff, but sometimes used stuff that you can get for good prices. Typically we walk out of there with at least $20-something spent. We walked out with nothing. It was the craziest thing ever. Craziest thing. But yeah, so far it's been good. I hope all of y'all have had a good day as well. I'm for fixing the team, as this is Corey saying this, as opposed to not just one person. I think that's what I go back to my argument about this whole Bo Nix thing. And people's disdain for him. It's a lot easier to pinpoint and point fingers at one person as to an entire unit. It is. And it's much easier to, in theory, fix one person as it is to fix an entire unit. Because it takes a lot more patience. It takes a lot longer time. Fix the offensive line. You fix Auburn, not just Bo Nix. Neil, we could be Georgia where they recruit 5-star quarterbacks only to watch those quarterbacks head off to play for other schools. We could. It would be terrible to do that, right? It sucks for Georgia. I laugh every time I see it happen, though, because and Neil knows this, living here in Georgia, Georgia fans walk around here with no real competition in their state. Every once in a blue moon, Georgia Tech will think they're going to do something, and they might. But they have no real competition. So they pretty much get what they want here. They've got nobody to talk, trash with other than those Auburn fans that have relocated over here. And so they're always like, oh, look at my recruiting. look at me, best in the state. Well, who are you recruiting against? Are you recruiting against Alabama? No, you're not. I mean, in some sense, you are, of course, when they cross states and all that stuff. But in in-state stuff, you've got free reign pretty much against the in-state schools. All I've done is eat Valentine's Day chocolate that I bought for myself. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, my friend. There's nothing wrong with it. Just don't eat too much of it. Don't make yourself sick, but that sounds like a good day, though. Neil, I agree. These Georgia fans here, they are all kinds of special. They are, I don't hate Georgia fans as much as everybody else does. In fact, when I talk about a lot of people, my, when people ask me who are Auburn's biggest rivals, for me personally, it's obviously Alabama. Then it would be, I shouldn't say biggest rivals. Georgia is our second biggest rival, but the teams I hate the most would be probably, obviously Alabama. Then it's LSU. Then it's really Georgia, but Florida gets up there a little bit for me, guys. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Florida, for some reason, Tennessee's kind of working their way back up into the top 5 as well. But Florida, I went to the Swamp for 2019. Not happy about that one. It's an ugly stadium in the bowels of it, too. The field, the experience when you're sitting there watching the game is outstanding. But getting into that stadium is absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't hate UGA. I get annoyed with their fans. I can tolerate Bama fans because family. So my mother is an Alabama fan, and so it's always an interesting dynamic there to work with. Most of my family is AU Bama grads. We will play nice with each other. You have to play nice for 364 days a year. Game day, it's all bets are off, baby. My wife, I think, is always nervous when we tend to go to Decatur, where she's from, Alabama, and her family lives right now, and all of her family are Alabama fans. And so we end up usually going there for some reason on Thanksgiving weekend, same weekend as the Iron Bowl, and seeing her family on those when it's in Tuscaloosa. And so we end up spending those times with them, which we traditionally lose, which is great. It's just great. I think she's always nervous of me spending time with her family during Iron Bowl week. Destiny says, I've not been the biggest Bo Nix fan, but it's hard to ignore the previous regime record with developing quarterbacks. Remember, Jason Campbell was inconsistent early in his career as well. And I think that's Dusty, I think you have a great perspective on this. I think you can sit there all day and we can all agree that Bo Nix has some, whatever you call them, mechanics. And that's the funny thing is, like, and I don't know people personally, but I see a lot of people saying his mechanics are off, his footwork are off. Do you actually know what you're talking about, or are you just repeating what the talking heads on the TVs are saying? Do you actually know that's his problem? But anyway, all that being said, I like your perspective because you can sit there and say, I'm not the biggest fan right now, but I can recognize that there's a bigger problem out. And so I'm willing to give a little bit on the dislike I might have. I think that's a very fair stance to take, Dusty. Here we go. I was wondering when we get some Dylan Brooks people in here. Albrando's Terminal says, what's the latest on Dylan Brooks? I'm going to say this, and this is probably going to I hope this will make you leave immediately. Get off the Dylan Brooks bandwagon. I'm not talking about, you don't have to, I hope anybody wants to come to Auburn. With Tennessee being, first of all, I wouldn't want to get involved with anybody from Tennessee at this point, personally. Recruits, coaches, otherwise, because that's just a dirty program right now. Second of all, Tennessee's still in the way of them coming here. You think they're really going to let that happen? No, they're not going to let that happen. So everybody's all excited about Dylan Brooks coming. I'm just not going to get my hope up about it. And if it happens, and I'm happy to be wrong, excited to have the dude here. And I understand that he said he wanted to be here. I want to be in Disney World right now. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, though. There's some things that have to, work out there. Let's see. Rodney says, I just sent a long message, but I don't think you can see it. Is there a certain amount of words you can message at one time gently? Mobile home part? I don't know, Rodney, what you're I don't see that message here. It may cut you down on words or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. If you want to send us a message, you can do so like on social media, or you can leave a comment on one of the previous videos that we can go back and look at and stuff like that. But yeah, so sorry if it didn't pop up here, but I definitely don't see a long message from you. let's see. I like getting UJ fans on the one question they hate. When's the last time you guys won a natty? Can we all address this here? Let's talk about this for just a second. How awesome. Did y'all catch on Twitter, I think it was, Wendy's, like the Wendy's, the restaurant, the fast food chain? They posted its National Roast Day. Who wants to get roasted? And then this is Wendy's official Twitter account and UGA's official Twitter account. It had an exchange. UGA say, let us have it. And they roasted them on the whole 40 years since your last Heisman National Championship. And then they asked them, here's the kicker. That was good enough. The last message they posted. Oh, and by the way, please don't eat at one of our restaurants because we're scared you're going to choke on one of our food items. What a burn. I want to go eat at Wendy's right now simply because of that. Do you think they knew who they were playing to? Georgia Tech fans, Auburn fans, Tennessee fans, Florida fans, they're all going to Wendy's in the next couple of days. What an amazing roast. Let's see here. Dusty has a great point. I remember fans wanting to run Campbell out of Auburn in 2003. It does feel like that, doesn't it? And it's what's ironic is a lot of people that are making these type of comments about Bo Nix, they were there for Jason Campbell. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's going to happen the exact same way. It could be a lot worse than what it ended up for him, but it also could be a lot better. I'm willing to lean on the optimism and say that he's going to get better. Let's see. My brother-in-law has been telling me to write it down that UJ would win the title this year, and I've been writing it down for over 20 years. That's a long list of writing it down, isn't it? So, yeah, I love messing with UGA fans. I've got a lot of work that, no bad blood or anything like that, just having fun with them. And, every time they get their little high horse after they beat us or something and they walk in and say, oh, we got Bama this year. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. All right, Georgia going to Georgia is all I say. And I just walk in every time at work and I'm just like, do I even need to say it? They say, don't say a dang word, Kyle. These kids know what they're getting. Do these kids know what they're getting themselves into? I don't know. Looks like most of you saw the Wendy's thing. That was so good. Casey, are you talking about basketball? Yes. So we only have, if my understanding, we only have 5 games, right? We got Mississippi State, LSU, Florida, Tennessee, and Alabama again. No, wait. Where do I play Alabama again? I think. Yes. Mississippi State, Florida, LSU, Mississippi State, LSU, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, I think is how it ends on the season. 3 out of the 6 would be good. Because I think you beat Mississippi. Here, I'll throw a prediction down right now for everybody. I think Auburn will beat Mississippi State at home. I think something tells me they're going to beat Florida. I don't know why. I have no reason to believe that other than just a feeling. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. I'm sorry. I don't think they're going to beat Alabama. I think they're also going to beat either LSU or Tennessee. But I think you're, in terms of if you're a little off on the 6 games left, I think there's only 5 left. I'm doing math in my head. Maybe there is 6 and I'm missing one. I thought there was. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But 3 wins in the last stretch of this game, as hard as it is, would be very, very good. Especially the way the team's playing right now. Joe is here. Good to see you, my man. Thanks for being here. Joe also, we've already given a shout out to John, but Joe is also a member of the E2C Network Booster Club. Thank you so much for your help in supporting our content. Again, the link for that, if you want to check that out, for as little as $1 a month. And by the way, you can sign up for it, and you won't get charged until the beginning of the next month, until the start of March, if you just want to kind of see if it's worth your while. Share some exclusive content there, even at the lowest level. We interact with people there as well, a little bit more than we do on social media and stuff like that. If they're interested in at least seeing what that's all about. Links are in the description and up above in the chat window at the very top, and we'll put them at the bottom as well. But thanks, Joe, for being a supporter. Rodney says, I'm 52, had classes with Bo Jackson and Rob, the voice of Auburn football. Rod, you mean, was a student teacher. Do y'all remember JF Fingers, the chicken place, and what it stands for? Back to sports. Here's the thing I want to remind everybody here. It's why I say it at the beginning of every live stream. If it's Auburn, we're going to talk about it. If y'all want to talk about food places in Auburn, I am all for that because there's some good eating in Auburn. And that's kind of what makes this our podcast network, but what we try to do here stuff as well is we want to be more all-encompassing than everything, than a lot of the other people out there that do stuff. There's everybody that wants to do sports stuff, and we want to do that mainly here. It's the engine that drives the car, but Auburn is much more than sports. So we can talk about that. In fact, I think 2-3 years ago, some of our contributors on the podcast network got a inclination to do a best chicken places in Auburn podcast, and they had a debate about it. And of course, to my chagrin, they left Zaxby's out of that. But they just did that to get my goat. So I do not know JF Fingers, but I'm sure it was good. Casey says we need to beat Bama. We never get swept by Bama, and it would make us look bad, and they're recruiting good. Well, I don't know, Casey. I don't necessarily think that them sweeping us this year is like this huge knockdown for us in recruiting and stuff like that. Most teams understand that Auburn's not competing this year. This is kind of some pieces coming together. I'm not so worried about that from the recruiting standpoint. I don't want to be swept by them, but they've swept us plenty of times, believe it or not. Did you go to the Wendy's official Twitter account? If you go look for the roast there, I think you'll find it. Maybe UGA deleted it because they got toe up. Sorry, I had to get a little swig of water there. But yeah, they got toe up on the Twitter sphere. Okay, you can't find it. Yeah, I wish I had it up. I've got my phone being used, or I tried to find it real quick. But it's out there somewhere. I would bet that someone took a picture of it somewhere on social media, and it's out there probably. In fact, I'm 99% sure somebody has. Don't really have a place I can direct you, though. My fondest memories as a kid are going to the mall near Auburn before going to the football game with parents, grandparents. I just miss the 80s. We all do. The 80s were probably the greatest decade, and I was only 3 when we exited the 80s. But I still know how awesome they were. Yeah, I haven't heard of a lot of people spending time at the mall before game, but hey, everybody's got their traditions. And by the way, if you've not checked out our Auburn Roots podcast series, you should. And we get a lot of stories like that. And that's kind of what the series is about. We obviously talk a lot about the sports, but people's personal memories. In fact, I'm interviewing someone tonight about their Auburn roots. That'll be coming out this next Friday. So if you like those kind of stories, you can find it on the main podcast link. In fact, let me just put this here for you guys in case. I don't know if it'll let me. This is I just put it in the chat window. It says listen to Auburn Roots. That's the link to the Auburn Roots only podcast feed. So you'll only get that specific podcast that updates about every 2 weeks with a new episode if you're just interested in those ones. We made a separate one for that just to kind of let people see if they just want to check those ones out. But you can find it on the main podcast feed with all the other podcasts as well. I've never been walked around campus. Can someone take me to the other part of Auburn, the campus? If you seriously never walked around campus, I would be happy to take you on a tour. That's what we should do. We should all have a meetup one day and say, we're going on a campus tour. And we're all just going to walk around and talk about it. I spent time at the mall because my grandmother was a shopaholic. Fair enough. John says, dinner time, got to go. Have a good night. Thank you guys thank you for being here, John. We really appreciate it. And your support as well, sir. Was it the main athletics account or UGA football? I think it was UGA football that said it. Yeah, I think it was just UGA football. Joe says so you just went to Jordan Hare and did nothing else. I mean, that's fair. That's what you were there for. One of the best things that you can do as an Auburn fan, in my opinion, this has changed a little bit for me in the last couple of years because I don't think Auburn athletics is scheduled as well, and you'll definitely won't see that this year with them wanting to spread people out. But in a year's time, at least, come to Auburn A-Day weekend, not just A-Day, but A-Day weekend, because typically what happens is you have the football A-Day game. You will also have a probably a campus, a locker room tour that goes on, I think, the day before the game. There's usually either a softball or a baseball series that same weekend. So a Friday, Saturday, Sunday game. They usually have the game that's going to be on Saturday be right after or right before the actual 8A football game. Usually tennis is there. Typically, they used to do a track meet. There is a ton of Auburn athletic stuff to go see just during the game if you can stay a full weekend in a hotel or something. And then you've got time to go check out campus, to walk around the town. Auburn is a beautiful, loveliest village on the plains. If you have not had time to do it, you need to make it because it is an incredible place. So that 8A weekend is what I would recommend to you to do. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and say goodbye to our social media friends. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. All right, we have cut off the Instagram, folks. Most of you know we'll be here for a few more minutes. This is going to be on a shorter stream side, but this was just meant to kind of get together since we didn't have a stream yesterday. I do plan to have one tomorrow. The plan is to potentially talk about the next recruiting class, but if something bigger happens, we might discuss that as well. But we'll see what happens. But I hope you guys will be here tomorrow. Let me go through our end of show announcements. I want you to get your last minute comments and questions in right now. Hit that like button if you haven't. If you've enjoyed the stream today, we've had a lot of new faces, I think, too. So you consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. And if you're new to our podcast as well, here, let me go ahead and bring the support thing up here so you guys can take a look at that. If you're new to our podcast, we've tried putting the most recent one up on YouTube. It's just the audio with a little background image. Check that out. If you like it, you can find it on Apple Podcast. I'm going to put all the links for this stuff that's mentioned here in the support tab in the description at the very top of the chat. And then when we exit here, I will put them at the bottom of the chat as well if you want to go check them out. You can listen to the podcast. Consider joining the E2C Network Booster Club for as little as $1 a month. You can offer up PayPal donations or shop at the TeePublic store to get our logo, some other Auburn-related gear as well. There's also just other sports-related gear that we have in our store. It does help support us and an independent artist as well. So those are some things you can help do to help support us. Albranda says, with a good O-line, I see a comfortable Bo Nix. I see a comfortable quarterback in general. And like that talked about, the whole discussion is Bo Nix, should he be the starting quarterback? It's much bigger than that. It is, can the offensive line get fixed? Because there will not be a quarterback that can see success if that offensive line does not get better, specifically offensive tackle. But as a whole, the entire unit. And that requires not only staying healthy, but having the depth so when you aren't healthy, there's not a huge drop-off in talent, skill, all that kind of stuff. Didn't know of the weekend, just knew of the game, never been to any other sports, can't seem to catch other sports games not sold out. It's hard sometimes on A-Day weekend, so you got to kind of plan in advance and buy the tickets in advance. I have been able to walk into like a softball game, but purchase a ticket right after the A-Day game. So if you plan on doing something like that, I would buy all your tickets in advance to make sure they're secured. But track and field, there's no charge for track and field as far as I understand. There's no charge for tennis, no charge for swimming and diving. That's usually over, though, by that time. There's no charge for equestrian. That's something you want to go check out. Sometimes they'll schedule one that weekend. That's a big win right there. So, my encouragement to you is go check all that out if you can. Do a little planning. If you need help planning a weekend, I'd be happy to help you find the best possible experience that you can at Auburn. Drake must be... you talking about the basketball team? They must have. I never hop on those type of bandwagons. I think the only time I did it was when Gonzaga was coming up as a rising power, and I kept every year saying they were going to go at least to the Final Four, and every year they'd lose in the first or second round. It was the most frustrating thing. So now I never count. My rule of thumb is I have 2 rules of thumb in basketball. Never, ever count on Gonzaga to consistently make it past the second round, and never, ever count out Tom Izzo. Now, that's kind of vague, But when I say that, I mean, obviously he gets to the Sweet 16. That's the Michigan State head coach. Those are my 2 rules of thumb when we do a March Madness stuff. By the way, we will do a March Madness challenge this year. I need to get on that, getting that set up. But we will do a March Madness challenge this year. And we'll obviously announce it here and all that kind of stuff. It'll be a lot of fun to do that. Again, since we've got a lot of new people that have been following us here on this channel and stuff like that. It's like Arizona. They always seem to be at the top of the bracket, only to bomb out quickly. I've never thought of Arizona that way, but you're right. It probably is the case. Joe reminds us that spring practice starts 3/16, 8A April, sometimes the first week. Right, yes, that would be it's about, I think, 15 practices, and they usually do practice, day off. So that kind of, I think that usually means about 3 weeks of practice. And I think they even have, if I remember correctly, they may do 2.5 weeks of practice, the 8A game, and then one more, not week, but few days of practice afterward to kind of clear some things up after the 8A game. So, yes, that should be we're going to be talking a lot about that here. I want to go to 8A weekend. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, but if I do, we might all try to meet up and say hello if anybody wants to come down and do that. We'll figure something out. I don't know what the restrictions are going to be and all that kind of stuff. That's the main reason we haven't done a lot of the stuff that we normally would this year, because of everything that's been going on. Is this the only year of self-imposed punishment for the basketball as it stands right now, Corey? I think that depends on how bad the Chuck Person situation was. And that's what this is the result of. So my hope is yes. Gosh, it would be Auburn's luck if it wasn't. So yeah, we'll see. I hope so, though. Joe says he's going to be at 8A weekend. I would like to be there. I can't guarantee it yet, but I hope to be there as well. All right, folks, I think that's going to be it for the day. We'll be talking to you tomorrow probably about some recruiting stuff, unless some bigger stuff happens. So hit that subscribe bell, that notification bell, so you know when we go live. Thank y'all for being here today, and War Eagle.